Yielding in action. Now it's time to, you've built your report, you've got some intel there, the information in front of you, but what are the physical things you're going to do when it comes to taking some action with fluctuating your prices? All these concepts we're talking about here today can either be done on a very simple level. You can peel these right back, and absolutely we believe that any level of yielding is better than no level of yielding. So if that's where you need to start, absolutely go there and build your confidence, build your knowledge and your education over time, and do a lot of experiments and testing with all this to see how it works as well. So it builds that knowledge base within you. But you can also go the other end of the spectrum and get better and better and better at it, because that's what we believe, that there's always room for improvement. That's fine, and one of the big things we talk about when we're talking about the habits and the disciplines you need to build in, and grabbing historical data and being really familiar with that as sort of a benchmark going forward. The holy grail of all this is the ability to forecast. And as I think I've said in the last module, it's not easy to achieve, but highly valuable if you can get even close to forecasting. Now, you're probably already forecasting quite naturally by gut feel in your head. You already know, oh, we're not going to fill Friday night, oh, but we'll fill Saturday. That's forecasting. If you know, from whatever's happening in the marketplace, you know you're going to fill, you should be making decisions based upon that. If you know, you know, you know. And if you know you won't, well, it's the same, you should be making pricing decisions upon that. Well, this is just a more scientific and mathematical way of going about it. So if you can accurately forecast, and I'll put it this way, if you can look at next month and go, I know that I'm going to fill on these 10 days throughout the month. How would that impact what pricing you put in the market now? Absolutely knowing 100% that you will fill on those days. So that's the value of forecasting, as we mentioned earlier. So I'm just going to give you an example, a very simple formula of what forecasting means. So let's just say you have a 10-room property and you're expecting to sell 100% of those rooms on a given day. You have an average mode, or basically an average lead time of 10 days is in this situation where we're giving up, and there's 10 days left to sell. The rooms you've sold so far is 7, so you're sitting at 70%. Now you should be sitting at 50%, shouldn't you? If you've got a 10-day average lead time, you've got 10 rooms, and you expect them to fill to 100%, you expect to sell them all, at the 10-day mark, there's 10 days left to go, you've already sold 7, you're ahead of the curve. We talked about it being ahead of the curve earlier. So therefore, your expected pickup is 5 more rooms, because normally, with 10 days to go, you would sell another 5. So quite literally, we're adding on another 5 room nights on top of the 7, which would put you at 12 room nights sold out of a possible 10, therefore 120% occupancy. Now, obviously, you can't sell 120% of your rooms, but it's the height of that number that gives you the confidence. Wow, I should do something different with my pricing. I'm going to get demand for another 5 rooms, but I've only got 3 left to sell. So what do I do with my pricing now? So that, in a very simplistic form, is forecasting. So it's not nearly as complex as you think when you look at it on a singular basis like that. But just as equally as that formula works there, you can build those formulas into your yielding spreadsheets. If you've got the data to back it, and then get the formulas populating through, you can begin to build this forecasting function, and how valuable it is if you can be looking at not just a list of numbers, but we can put it into a graph, and you can see, wow, you know what, next month we're more than 100%, or we're forecasting more than 100% on half a dozen days. Righto, let's change the pricing. Give it a crack, monitor it still, you don't just set and forget, monitor it, but you can have a crack at it. You can begin to maximise the return on investment for your asset. Now, the other thing when it comes to yielding in action is What are the tangible things that you can do, the levers that you can pull? There's a heap of things you can do, and it's really up to your imagination how far you want to take that. But what I hope to put across to you now is the 4 key things, the 4 big levers I feel that you can pull and is commonly used when it comes to making changes to your price. All right, so it's not just about the dollar. There's things you can do to influence yield and turn demand on or off or secure the bookings when it comes to yielding. So what we've got here is that if you have, or I guess the first thing you can do is, as we tend to, the reflex action tends to be increase or decrease the rates. So on a supply and demand scenario, the more you increase rates, the fewer people are going to be interested. But the hope is that you've done your homework, you've got your yield documents and spreadsheets all set up correctly, and you've got confidence that there's still going to be enough people that are going to want to book it, even though you're increasing the rates. So the plan is that in high demand, you're able to do that because you know the demand will be there. In low demand, you can have a crack at decreasing the rates to try and switch on some demand. So when it's quiet, consumers have a plethora of choice. They're seeing, I can stay anywhere I like. Everyone's dropping their rates. There's some really good deals here. I'm going to keep looking around and seeing what sort of deal I can get. So you want to actually be part of that. Now, obviously you've got to be careful there. You don't want to get into a race to the bottom all the time, and you don't want to start to get to non-profitable levels to drop your rates and start to prostitute your product. But you need to know, well, at what levels, how far am I prepared to go when it comes to discounting, and it's still profitable for my business to sell that room. And sometimes it's better off to get some revenue in than none, okay, in that perishable stock item environment. And equally, if you look at it from the consumer's point of view, when the town's busy, people become panicked, they become urgent and go, you know what, there's nowhere to sell, and they start to go, oh, look, here's one, they've got availability, let's just book it, otherwise we're not going to have anywhere to stay. And that's where you can start to cop some better yields and better rates on the property, because you're holding the gold, you're holding the room that 50 other people want, and there's only 10 rooms left in town. Well, then that's up for you to benefit from that scenario of supply and demand. So piece 1, or factor 1 that you can play with when it comes to yielding, is clearly rates, increasing or decreasing. The second area is all around availability. So when it's quiet, leave them all out there. You want them sold, so there's no point trying to constrain it. But when it's busy, that's exactly what you want to do, or you can do. It can be a strategy to constrain the availability. So if people can only see that you've got 3 rooms left, and again, it builds that urgency and potentially helps you, maybe you sell 3 rooms and then you stay closed off for a while, let everyone else sell out for a bit, and then when there's 3 days left to go, or whatever lead time you're confident with, whenever there's 3 or 5 days left to go, you might release the remaining rooms into the marketplace at a time when everyone's absolutely panicking and going, well, we just need to find somewhere. Oh, guess what? We just found one. Bang, book it. They don't care what rate it is. They just needed the bed. So constraining the availability in high demand periods is a strategy you might want to consider. Word of warning, it typically only works in absolute high demand periods, but don't leave it too late. Be mindful of what's happening in the town or the suburb at that point in time. If it's a major event that people need tickets to, and you release availability the week prior, but the tickets sold out 3 months ago, you're probably not going to get any concert goers wanting to book your room. You may still pick up on just overflow demand that's in the marketplace, that's still fine, but just be mindful of what's happening. And if everybody's already got their accommodation organised or have moved on to the next suburb or town because they couldn't find anything, don't leave everyone too late when it comes to constraining availability. The other measure or lever that you can use to help with yielding is the length of stay. So obviously you keep it loose when it's quiet, but when it's busy, you can increase the length of stay to maximise it. So you can say, I don't think you'll... There's a couple of things here. Increasing length of stay helps you maximise the profit in your business. If you can garner a 2-night booking as opposed to a 1-night booking, or a 3-night as opposed to a 1-night, well then that's better than having all these gaps in your calendar of a 1-nighter here, a 2-nighter there, and so on and so forth, and you end up with people looking for 2 nights, but there's only 1 night available. So you'll end up with hollow gaps in your booking calendar where people haven't been able, you haven't been able to fulfill their needs because they want to come for the whole weekend. So if it's busy, if it's high demand, it's wise to put minimum night stays in place. So put a control in there. You have to come for at least 2 nights, and put shoulder nights on it. You can fluctuate it. It could be Thursday, Friday. It could be Friday, Saturday. It could be Saturday, Sunday. You don't mind, but it actually helps fill the voids there and enforce them to stay to 2 nights. So you're not left exposed with rooms left on the table. So yeah, increasing your length of stay is a good one to have. But don't be fooled by thinking that you're going to be able to convince people to stay longer. That rarely happens. Sometimes people just are desperate for a room, and if they have to pay a 2-night stay, they have to. But really, would you do it? You know, would you pay for 2 nights if you could find somewhere else? Like even if you're charging $200 for 2 nights, and your buddy up the road is charging $80, poor example, or even if your buddy up the road is charging $150 for 1 night, you only need 1 night, you'll book the $150, even though yours is only $100 a night, but you have to book 2, if that makes sense. So you can't tend to influence travel behaviour, you know, how many nights they need by the rates you're putting out there. You can help people conform to the demand that's in the marketplace, but you're not going to change their travel behaviour. They're either coming for 1 night, 2 nights, or 10 nights, and you're really not going to influence that. Rarely, anyway. And the other one is tightening the terms and conditions, or loosening the terms and conditions, dependent upon. So last minute business, yep, book it, don't pay me when you get here, no cancellation fee, whatever you need to do, whatever frees it up so they feel less committed. And there's some small risks around that. But on the other end of the scale, when the demand's high, you can tighten those things up. And we mentioned earlier around on an advanced purchase rate, you put a non-refundable clause in there. So I'll give you a discount, but here's my terms. It's non-refundable. The other one you can put in there, and in that sort of scenario, an advanced purchase rate, is pay up front too. Now that doesn't actually help your business generate any extra revenue or profit as such, but it does help you more so with your cash flow. So if it's non-refundable, why not go pay up front or 50% deposit? Get the money in the door now. It's a great business principle to have the money in the door sooner rather than later. So there's 4 yield levers that you can use in opposing scenarios depending on whether it's high demand or low demand. And there's some of the practical application around yielding in action.